Going to start pretty soon here. Hey everyone, good afternoon. It's Hector Aguilar, along with Ben, your agent from Aguilar Realty Group. Today
Hello.
we have a really special hot topic of the week. Today's our Wednesday hot topic, and I wanted to bring something new to the channel. I think that um, has a little to do with housing. You know, as real estate agents, Ben and I, we focus on providing services to our clients, helping them buy and sell real estate. And I've known a Greater Love foster family agency, the founder, for many years. We actually went to high school together, and
Oh,
recently we've been, I've helped her and her family with a couple of real estate needs they had. And I was in conversation with her, and her name is Elizabeth Virmamontes, and she's not with us today because she's feeling a little under the weather. So let's keep her in prayer. But she did have her teammates today. I have Erica Barba and Teresa Retta of A Greater Love Foster Family Agency with us today. And I wanted to bring something to you all, to the audience, that was maybe not necessarily related to real estate, but it's related to housing, right? And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring Elizabeth on and her staff was because they recently got awarded a grant from the from the U.S. Department, the federal government, to be able to help some of those children that are being, I don't know, let's see, help me out, Erica. What's the right terminology for those children? Do we want to say detained, withheld, or what's the terminology?
Technically, they're being detained at the border, and so they're called unaccompanied minors because their children are
So
underage.
unaccompanied minors.
Yeah.
So today, Erica and Teresa are going to share some information with us about that specific program, that particular grant that they were awarded. They're one of many agencies, but it's something new that they're passionate about. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to do with real estate, but it does have to do with housing and the need that we see of these immigrant children that are, one of two things that I found out: are they're coming across the border by themselves, or parents are throwing them over the wall, or who knows what's going on over there. But I thought that it would be interesting and it's an opportunity to share with our audience, that maybe kind of move your heart, and those that might have the ability or a desire to maybe become, resource families, what we call foster families, to learn a little bit more about the foster care system, and more importantly, how a Greater Love Foster Family Agency can help not only the children that need to be placed in homes, but also help those that might be thinking about becoming a resource family or a foster family. So, Erica and Teresa, welcome. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
taking the time. I certainly appreciate it. I hope that Elizabeth gets better soon. And I'm really grateful that you guys took the helm and honor here today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Erica and Teresa, how long you've been with the Greater Love Foster Family Agency, and a little bit about the agency itself.
Hi, I'm Teresa. I'm the office manager, HR. I have been working with Liz since 2018. I have been in foster care for many, many years, every capacity pretty much. Um, I started working with Elizabeth Viramontes while we were working for another agency.
Mhm.
Um, but Elizabeth is a visionary. She knew what she wanted. She enjoys what she does, and she
Mhm.
always thought she could do better. So one day she decided to do this on her own. She had the knowledge, the desire, and the drive to have her own business. So I followed her and we said, okay, there. I knew what she wanted to do. She has very strong ethical values. She has amazing experience and she knew the business and she knew what to do. Her main goal was to be there for the children.
Awesome.
Um, she is very devoted. I work for many agencies and I have never seen anybody that puts the children in front of anything. She
It's
decided to open up her agency in 2019.
okay.
We opened up in Santa Fe Springs, and eventually we outgrew that office and we moved to Whittier. Right now, we have about 100 children placed under Resource Parents Foster Family Agency, and we have about 50 homes. And we just got granted a new program, a new grant, federal money, and it's called the Office of Refugee Resettlement,
Oh, wow.
also known as unaccompanied minors.
Hmm.
And we got the grant on July 1st. So this is the agency's new adventure. We have a great leader. She's ready to go, and we have great staff. Very, very knowledgeable, very experienced, and we're excited. It's a new adventure.
Well, thank you for sharing that about A Greater Love. And I know when I was speaking to Elizabeth yesterday in preparation for today, I came to find out that Elizabeth's background or what she was prepared for was not to do social work. Um,
Absolutely.
she she kind of tripped into social work, and
Exactly.
you mentioned something that I know that Elizabeth does have, and she has a great heart. And when you have a great heart and you're vested into the uh, the well-being of children, that's two ingredients I think that you must have in order to have a at least be a director or be involved in social work, right? And we were talking about some of those victories and some of those challenges that are faced in the foster care industry in general. And I tip my hat to her because it's very difficult. I know she goes through a lot of stress. She thinks of her team, of her staff, and of course things of the placement of those children and those families. So thank you, Elizabeth, for doing what you do. And thank you, Teresa, and thank you, Erica, also for teaming up with Elizabeth. Erica, tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience, and what your contribution is there at A Greater Love Family Foster Agency.
So my title is foster care social worker supervisor. So I supervise all the workers we have within the agency, and by doing so, I oversee all the homes and all the children's under our care as well.
Okay.
I have one of the newer members for the team. I just started last year in 2021. But I've been working in the field for a couple of years now. I started off doing different things, and then I just enjoyed foster care a bit more. So I've continued with this one for a while.
Fantastic. I know that you spoke a little bit about yourselves. Tell me a little bit about A Greater Love Foster Family Agency and what you guys do for those children, for those programs, and for those families that might be thinking about, becoming a resource family. What does A Greater Love of Foster Family Agency do in general?
So in general, we work with different counties. So we have contracts with LA County, San Bernardino County, Riverside County, and I believe Orange County as well.
Yes.
Where we provide homes or homes of resource parents for the minors that do not have stable biological homes or that have gone through some type of trauma or just not the best or ideal situations for children to grow up in. So that's how the children get into the system. The prospective county goes, talks to the parents, they eventually detain the children, and we get the calls. So we get the intake call saying, hey, we have a placement, or do you happen to have a placement for, let's say, a 7-year-old boy? And they'll kind of give us a little bit more background. Oh, they're Caucasian, Hispanic, African American, they're bilingual, they're English speaking. This is probably their first time detainment, or sometimes we have kids that have been jumping around from home to home because sometimes it's not always a good fit. So
Right.
with us, we always try to find the really good fit for between the family and the child. Um,
Wonderful.
Sometimes some families are little bit better with higher behavioral needs, like whenever there's aggression and things like that. Some families are just starting off, they're like, I can't really do with a lot of behaviors right now, because then you have to take into account their own home environment. What if the family has
Gotcha.
kids of their own? Is it going
Understood.
to fit? So
So
that's
that's pretty wonderful. Kind of transition on as to maybe those that aren't familiar with foster care. What is foster care, and who does it help, and how does it help? Right. Like I know that you briefly described the needs for some children, but in general, foster care. Tell us about that. I mean, it's a little different than adoption, right? I mean, foster care is a whole different branch that could lead to adoption, from what I understand. But foster care is typically the first step, right?
yes.
Right.
So foster care initially, it's like I said, for the kids that are not in a stable home because there's problems going on within the parents or the biological families. So at that point, the county detains the children and places them in foster homes through our agency. So during that time frame, county usually provides the parents with resources of, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z in order for us to give you your children back. So they can have counseling, they can have different things going on for the parents in order to meet the needs that county's setting up for them to have the children back. If they do not
Understood.
meet the needs, then of course that's when people look at adoption, legal guardianship,
Mhm.
long-term placement, different things like that.
Okay.
So it helps both the children and the parents to kind of, well, the children to have a safe environment and for the parents to kind of give them time to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to improve myself to help my children? How do I
Wonderful.
get them back?
And I know that a lot of times we hear stories, typically negative stories in the news of children that have been abused, that are in bad situations, and so foster care alleviates that. From what it sounds like to me, that alleviates that and puts them in a better environment for a short time period, whether that's 30 days, 2 weeks, 6 months, a year. That's going to vary, I'm sure, depending on the needs of the children and the ability of the parents to kind of recover themselves and prepare themselves to receive their children back. And I'm assuming that there's court involved here too at some point, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So,
just go ahead, Teresa.
so the children get detained. An accusation is made for neglect. Anybody can make an accusation. Uh, the role of the Department of Children and Family Services is not to investigate, but to protect the children.
Right.
So what they do, they go to the home and retrieve the children.
Mm-hmm.
No questions. That's what they do. So then these children gets placed in foster family agencies like ours until the biological parents go to court. It can be 72 hours when they first appear in front of the judge. It can be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It can be years, depending on the severity of the case.
Sure.
The judge will mandate either rehab, counseling, parenting classes. Once the biological parents do what the court mandated, then they get the children back. The
Fantastic.
role of the Department of Children and Family Services, as well as ours as a private agency contracting for the CFS, is to protect the children. So
Wonderful. So
we're going to be
obviously the goal here is to protect the kids and put them in a safer
absolutely.
environment, right?
So while they are in our care, we will provide everything the child needs from a nice, nurturing, healthy environment,
Mm-hmm.
love, care, clothing, tutoring, counseling, service, therapy. That is our job to protect these kids until they reunify with their biological parents.
So I have a quick question for you.
Can I add something?
Sure.
Sure, Ben.
Oh, go ahead, Hector. I'll follow up after you.
So my question to you is, how great is the need for resource families? That's something that I think that most people don't really understand is there a small need, a medium need, a huge need? What's the demand?
It's a
Um,
huge need.
it's a huge need,
It's huge.
It's
right?
I think the last time I checked the numbers in LA County, there's over 30,000 kids in foster care in LA
Oh,
County
wow.
alone. And we're always getting into calls throughout the day, throughout the night, that they're looking for homes for kids. And sometimes we have a vacancy list of a couple of homes available. Sometimes we don't. Like I said, sometimes you get calls for like a 5-year-old little kid. Sometimes it's like, hey, I have a 17-year-old male that needs a home. And teens tend to be a little bit harder to place.
Sure.
We
And
also
I can imagine that sometimes placing the children, depending on age and some of their emotional needs, can be a difficult task as well, right?
absolutely.
Yes.
Sometimes we have to go to the hospital and pick up a baby.
Mm,
So at the time of the application, the resource parent, it's the new term for foster parents.
okay.
At one point in the application will specify which age bracket they're willing to work with.
Understood.
It's not definite, but they could say, I prefer babies, or
Sure.
I prefer toddlers,
Sure.
or I prefer teenagers.
Okay.
So once the placement has been identified, meaning what age bracket they want to work with, then we know who to call at the time of the placement.
Fantastic. Ben, you had a question, Ben, or a statement.
Yes, thank you. What do you guys do in the case where, the parents, not the parents, but maybe a family members want to take over the child, or the kid, the child.
Yeah, in other
wanting to,
words,
because
you're asking, is it possible, or what's the process for a family member to want to foster that child? Right, Ben? Would that be the
correct,
question?
like another family member, correct?
Right.
Yes.
So the role of the Department of Children and Family Services is to keep the kids united with their family. They do not want to separate. Once the accusation and investigation starts, they will call family members before they call us. But there's a process, just like we have a process. They have to make sure you're clear. There's no criminal background. Number one, there's space in the home. Are they driving? Can they keep this child until they
Mm.
reunify with the parents? If
Right.
they're
And
able
I'm
to,
assuming that that's all part of like an application process that someone would go through, right?
it is an application on their part in this
Hmm.
case because they're trying to identify a family member.
Sure, sure,
If
sure.
they find one, let's say an aunt, a sister, an older sister, a former husband, a boyfriend, somebody that it's able to take the children while the children has been detained, that's wonderful. If they can't, then they come to us,
Okay. Now,
and then that
obviously,
would be
we've
our
been
home.
talking primarily about the local needs, right? LA County, San Bernardino County, Orange County, and our local counties, and the need for foster resource families. But one of the things that I talked to Elizabeth about, and it's probably really close to my heart and really close to Elizabeth's heart, is, you know, the unaccompanied minors program, right? And the reason why it's close to my heart is because, I'm a first generation child of immigrant parents, right? And I believe Elizabeth was actually an immigrant, and I can tell you that children and immigrants haven't faced the challenges that they're facing now, right? I think in years past, in the 70s and 80s, maybe even in the 90s, it was difficult to cross the border, and you had to, do whatever you needed to do to come over here looking for a better life for you and your family. But now we're seeing more and more, unaccompanied children, and that's kind of where the conversation started with Elizabeth with regards to bringing this particular grant and the transitional unaccompanied minors. Let's talk a little bit about that. What are they going through? How do they get there? And kind of walk us through that child experience, or what's going on with these unaccompanied minors. How are they getting to the border, and what's happening with them?
I think everyone gets there at a different pace. I know the children at the border they come from different nations, Latin America, not just Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador. So everyone gets to the border at different ways, different means of
Hmm.
transportation. What's happening right now is that all the kids that came here by themselves without any adults, those are the ones that are being detained, and that's what this program is for the minors, for the ones under the age of 18 that came with no family or have no one here. So the whole point is to take those kids and look for their sponsors.
Mm.
So while the federal government's looking for their sponsors, whether it's cousins, aunts, someone that's already established in the United States,
Hmm.
where we got the grant to house or find homes for these kids temporarily through specified homes. Like they're not foster homes; these are homes specific for this program,
I
where the
see.
kids will be placed there temporarily while we find their sponsors or while the government finds their sponsors.
Now
So it's
tell me a little bit about, or let's clarify, let's say immigrants that are coming over that are adults with children. I'm assuming they're not being separated anymore, right? Because I know a couple years ago there was a huge uproar about, the federal government and the administration making it a point to separate children from their parents. Is that still going on right now?
not from what I know, but this program specifically is just for the parents, for the children that came here with no parents.
Okay.
So it's not geared towards the mother with her two kids. It's geared towards that one little kid that came here by himself because
Mhm.
searching for a better life or looking for a family, whatever the reason may be.
I understand. Now,
Yeah.
what are the age groups that you're seeing that are part of this, unaccompanied minors situation? I mean, are they young as 5 years old, or what's the age group you're seeing?
Well, for us, it's, since Teresa mentioned earlier, we just got the program like a month ago,
Hmm.
July 1st. We're still trying to get it off the ground. We're trying to like allocate all the homes that we need for this program. So as of yet, we haven't gotten our first case yet because we're
Right.
still
Okay.
building it from the ground up. But from what we've heard, like we've seen little kids with like an older sibling per se, like a 10-year-old with a 5-year-old, or whatever the case is, or
Wow.
a 15-year-old with someone younger.
Sure.
So we'll see. They've seen all the age range up until the age of 18, I think.
I appreciate you clarifying that. One of the questions that I know that we have is, how does Greater Love Foster Family Agency help those particular children that are part of the unaccompanied minors? I know that you mentioned briefly that they put them temporarily in a specific housing situation, but you're looking to place them also in a specific resource family. What is going to be involved in that new program as an agency with that specific program? What are you going to be able to do for them?
So this is a completely separate program from the foster family agency. So this is its
Mm.
own program. It's going to stand on its own. So when we start, we have it built up, we have the homes and everything allocated. Once we start receiving the calls, we're going to start placing these children in the homes we have available.
I see.
And during that time, like the minute they're placed, we have 48 hours up until to get their medical needs checked out because maybe they haven't been to the doctor. So we have a list of requirements that while they're still here, we're going to fill for them, whether it's medical, dental, whatever the case is. And so that's what the responsibility for these parents will be up until a sponsor has been located and approved through the government to take care of these children. So it's just a temporary basis for us where, okay, we've got the child, let's make sure they have their medical, dental, everything that they need. And then once the sponsor is identified, then they'll be removed from the program and placed with their family, with their sponsor or family member.
Can
Well,
I add a little bit, Hector?
Sure, sure.
In addition to that, our role as a foster family agency, we already have some of those homes identified. They already
good.
said this is the children that I want to keep.
Mhm.
Our role as an agency is to provide a safe environment for the children until they reunify with the sponsor wherever the sponsor is. And by doing that, we'll be providing the medical care, the dental. We're going to be providing a teacher. They're going to be in regular school. We'll have the teachers, we'll have the tutors. We're going to be providing the mental health they need by having clinicians in the facility, having all the services they need to function and to give them a, if you want, a normal life until we're able to identify the sponsor. So
the main goal is to give them a level of care that every child deserves, right?
Yes.
Whether they're immigrants or they're born here locally or they're part of the, maybe an abused family. But it's good to notate that it's two separate programs, right? We have the unaccompanied minors program, and then of course your core support to the community, which is the Greater Love Foster Family for the local counties. And it's a great need. I know that there's probably thousands of children unaccompanied that are part of this government program at the borders, and I know there's a great need. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was, to bring this awareness to most of our audience so that those that might be interested would maybe raise their hand. And you mentioned something about being pre-approved, right? So that's something that I want to talk a little bit about in terms of what is the application process to be approved as a resource family, both for the local counties and maybe specifically to help some of these unaccompanied minors that are faced at the border. Is it the same process and what is the process? Can you share a little bit about that?
The process is simple. First of all, identifying where the area that we need to recruit. We work with different counties, so we look at the population and we see where we want to expand the services. Let's say we're targeting Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to do is find sources for advertisement. We are a based faith agency, so we do a lot of advertising with the churches, with community services, with farmers market. We recruit, train, and certify people in our community to be resource parents.
I see.
The application process is number one, doing an orientation and making sure they're a good candidate to become a resource parent. How? By determining if they have the space, number one.
Mm-hmm.
If they have a criminal background, obviously we will have to determine what it is. And they have to be able to pass all these clearances in order for them to have these children in their homes. They have to be fully trained in different areas. We train, pre-train, and we train after they become foster parents. We find that the more training we can give them, the better foster parents are going to be. And
Fantastic.
last, we do a home study. We want to know about the family, how they were brought up. Was it a nurturing home? Or where did they grow up? How was the family? Was it nurturing? Was it strict? The reason why we do a home study is because we want to know that they're the best fit to house these children.
Sure, sure.
Once they get certified, we place the children in their homes. We try to have foster parents that have expertise. I mean, you might place a child in a home where the foster mom is a nurse, or it's a teacher, or
Hmm.
they do anything that will benefit the children. Once the home is, yeah, go ahead, Hector.
So one of the things that I of what you just said kind of stood out to me, right? Let's say we have new families that might be interested. They have the space, maybe they have the desire and the ability to want to do that. But what's important is, excuse me, is to have that orientation with them. Excuse me. And I think that's probably the first step, right? Like
Right,
get through an orientation first before you actually apply is probably step one, right? To
absolutely.
understand, what are the needs in terms of the children that are in need, but more importantly too, what are requirements, what you're going to have to go through, and what you're going to have to kind of um, in terms of training, understanding. There might be a lot of people that do have the heart, but they're just not prepared. So orientation is absolutely key. So that's important. And then obviously, you know, finding out whether they have a criminal background, finding a little bit more about the their experience growing up, were they part of a loving family, and all those things that you're doing or you're mentioning, pardon me, are all an effort to be able to find good homes, good resource families for those children that are in need. So I applaud you for that. And for those of you that are thinking about maybe, hey, maybe I have an extra bedroom, maybe it's something I want to kind of do it in my home. Maybe I want to help some other children. I mean, we're put on this earth to contribute, in some form or fashion, contribute to our loved ones, our family members, our circle of influence. But there's also a huge need for these young children that need good homes. So if you're thinking about it, obviously, connecting with a Greater Love foster family agency would be step one, or a local agency, and go to an orientation and get familiar with what's going to be required. So thank you for sharing that. um, Kind of transitioning from the application process, let's say they're already approved. Let's say they like the idea of being a foster or resource family. They've gone through the orientation. What type of responsibilities are these resource families or foster parents expected to have as resource family or sponsors, if you would? Can you share a little bit with that, Erica, about that? Because I know that's kind of more in your expertise.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
kind of a little bit more. So one of the things for all the kids that are placed with us, again, basics is having a home, having a bed, having the space for a child. Like we can't just put a child in the living room and be like, here's a couch. Like no, all the kids need to have their own bed. Aside from that, it's the responsibility of the resource parents to provide weekly clothing allowance, monthly clothing allowance, make sure the kids have 3 meals and snacks a day. The visitations, like going back to court, sometimes the court orders like visits twice a week with bio parents. So then the resource parent would be responsible for taking the child. And then depending on how the case is, it could be monitored or unmonitored. So if it is monitored, the resource parent would have to stay there during the visit and just listen as to what's going on because there's certain things that the parents can't talk to the kids about, mostly being like the allegation or in the court. So those are
Mhm.
some of the responsibilities with the resource parents. The other part, going back to like the whole application, part of being a resource parent is you are going to be assigned, or they are assigned a social worker.
Mhm.
So the social workers will be going to the homes in the first 3 months. They'll be going every week, just checking in on the child and also checking in on the parents. Because for the brand new parents, it might be too much. You're like, oh my god, what am I doing? It's an
Right.
adjustment period. Some of
Right.
these kids, we don't know where they come from. Maybe they saw a lot of abuse, saw a lot of trauma, so they're scared, and they'll be really quiet, or they can be really scared and just tantrum a lot. We don't know how they're going to behave.
Mhm.
So the agency worker would have to go check in with the child to see how they're doing and also check in with the parent to make sure that they're okay. Because if they're not okay, then they're not going to provide the best service for the child.
Wonderful. So
So,
it sounds like, and it's kind of my next topic, right? Let's say you go through the orientation, you decide you have the space, you get approved, and you want to, bring on a child. you know, it sounds like they're not left alone, right? And that's one of my topics: is what kind of support can foster families expect if they become approved, right? Because let's say I get approved and I have no clue what I'm doing, and who's checking up on the kid. You know, like you said, there's a social worker assigned, so there is help. Even though, you know,
Absolutely.
you're taking on the child, it's not like they leave you on an island by yourself, right? Tell us a little bit about some of the support. Is it 24/7? Is it on weekends only? Like what can a resource family expect in terms of support if they become approved?
For our agency, like our workers are always available. They're always on call. Me being the supervisor, I'm always available. I'm always on call. So it's happened a couple times where unfortunately the worker's in a meeting with another child. The
Mhm.
parent's having an emergency. The parent will call me like, "Hey, Eric, I'm so sorry. I haven't been able to get a hold of my worker, but this is what's going on. Can you please, like, I don't know what to do." So, and someone's always available. If it's not the worker, it's maybe me. Very rarely do I let it get up to Liz because I'm
Mhm.
usually really on top of my phone. But there's always support. All the families know the ones that I've gone to their homes, and I try my best to go to every single home and meet the parents. So
Okay.
they have my personal cell phone number, and I always remind them at any point if you have a question, call me, text me, whatever is the best way for you. I was like, because the last thing I want to do is make them feel that they can't call me. Because it can be a simple question of, hey, wait, I forgot how much is the clothing allowance? Or, hey, you know what, this child has, they're complaining of a headache. Do I have to take them to urgent care? Do I take them to the emergency room? How do I go about this?
Mhm. Yeah,
It just,
those are real life scenarios that people go through, and it's good that we're talking about them because those are questions that maybe someone might have that they're thinking about, like what if they get sick. And
it's,
you know, the other side of it is too is, you know, you mentioned that they have to have, you know, a clothing allowance, they have to have food for them 3 times a week, 3 times a day plus some snacks. And then of course the next question is like finance, right? How does this get subsidized to them? You know, is it, you know, obviously it's not thousands of dollars, but they do get some assistance from the state, correct? As well.
yes. So they do get, it's called a reimbursement check. It's a stipend essentially.
Hmm.
So when we place a child, we get the funding from the county, the government, the county specifically, and then we use that funding to provide the reimbursement for the families. So I know it sounds like, oh my God, these kids have to get like clothing and food and weekly
Hmm.
allowances. It's going to add up because that's the thing we have. Everyone always talks about, but they do get the reimbursement for it. That should cover all the costs that the child does require.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think it's, I don't know, it feels like a little tabooish, right, to talk about the finances, but we know that even if someone wanted to do it, maybe they don't have the financial means to do it. And it's good to know that they have the ability to be subsidized or reimbursed for their expenses because honestly, there's a lot of people that have great hearts and they have an extra room and they may want to do it,
That's
but
right.
maybe they just can't financially commit to it. So it's good that we talk about it. I know it's kind of a little bit of a taboo subject, but it's good to talk about it because most people may not know that.
Absolutely.
No, and it also has to do with the level of care because I was like, there's kids that have very basic level of care, so it's one of the lower rates. But let's say we have a kid that's more medically fragile. Let's say there's a child that has more medical appointments, more behaviors, more therapy, whatever the case is. Like they're
Hmm.
not going to get the basic rate of reimbursement. They're going to get more support to cover all of those extra expenses
Sure.
that they're going to see about.
That's good to know that though, depending on the need of the child or children, depending on how many you foster, you're going to get reimbursed accordingly. So that's good to know. I know we've gone through a little bit of topics in terms of what foster care is, what are the requirements, maybe the processes to get approved. Um, I want to first, you know, thank you for taking the time to talk about this. Like I said, it's something that's close to my heart in terms of, you know, especially the immigrant unaccompanied minors that are facing such tough challenges. Right? They leave their country, you know, or they're taken from their with their parents to leave their country, and then they're thrown into a complete foreign country, not knowing the language, not knowing where they're gonna go, and they're scared and they're going through this experience. And it's good to know that agencies like such as yours are working together with the federal government to give those children at least a level of care and love that they absolutely need, and we're all looking for that. And so I appreciate you, you know, talking about that. I know that it's a separate program from what a Greater Love foster family agency does. But being that you got this new grant, I think it's a good opportunity for those that might want to help some of those children, even in our local counties or in that program, to reach out to a Greater Love foster family agency. We've got their information here for you. I know we don't have a live audience in terms of question and answer, but you're more than welcome to reach out to them. You can reach them, at their office. They have a specific email as well, and they have a website. If you all want some additional information, or are just curious about maybe going to an orientation at some point to see if maybe you can become a resource family, please reach out to them. There's a huge need. And in closing, I want to give an opportunity to Erica and Teresa to maybe say one final closing statement about what they do and their passion to help children in care. So please, ladies, a closing statement, if you would.
Like I said, there's always a need. There's always a home. I know people, like you mentioned, some people have the heart, have the space. Sometimes not the financial things. Like that's nothing to worry about. We can always talk about it. Call us, let us know. We can walk you through the program. I know it can be a little bit scary saying, "Hey, I'm going to open my doors. There's some kids coming in here that I don't know what's going on." There's a lot of questions involved. It's something new. So please reach out to us. Like this is a field I enjoy working in. I enjoy my job. I love what I do. So you can always ask me anything.
Wonderful. Well, I don't know how you guys do it. I know for me, it would be difficult. I have such a huge heart, and I don't know if I would be able to go through these challenges by myself. So, bless you all for what you do. Teresa, if you would just give
Yeah,
us one closing statement, and then Ben has a statement after.
yeah. I just wanted to invite anybody that is interested. I say, open your hearts, open your home, find out what a rewarding job this is. There's a lot of children out there that need a home, a safe home. I've been in this business for quite some time, and for me and many people that work here, it's a very rewarding job where you go home at the end of the day and you know you saved somebody's life. They might be in danger, they might be hungry, they might need a nurturing home. You know that at the end of the day, you were able to find a home just like yours.
Hmm.
Give us a call, find out what this is for. Ask any questions. We can do an orientation over the phone. We invite you to come in. We're in Whittier and see what this is all about. Either you want to do foster care or you want to do the unaccompanied minors. We can help you and give you the information that you need.
Wonderful. Thank you, Teresa. Ben, you had a comment?
Just want to say thank you, ladies, for coming on. It was quite a bit of great knowledge on sharing this topic. Something I've been thinking about, me and my wife as well, and
Oh,
definitely got a lot of insight on that. And then I guess just a quick question. If it's the wrong question, I'm sorry, but have people came where it was from a foster to a actual adoption?
yes.
Yes.
We actually
Okay, that's
have
cool.
5 kids right now in the process of adoption.
Oh,
Fantastic.
okay.
Parental rights being terminated, to now the homes where they're at, the families are with, are willing to adopt them. So it happens.
That's a great question, Ben,
Awesome.
because I think there's probably, let's say, couples like yourself, Ben, that might be considering adoption, but maybe uncomfortable with it. Maybe they want to experience what it might be like, and the foster care system could be a good entry point for someone who's maybe thinking about adoption, to see if they're willing to go through those steps of being a resource family, learning the process, and then at some point, and obviously the success stories are many. We see families that adopt children all the time that become, that are resource families that become parents. But I think it might be a good opportunity for those that are thinking about it, thinking about adoption, to maybe try foster system first. And again, who better than to pair up or partner up with someone like a Greater Love Foster Family Agency, and what they do. So,
Yes.
ladies, thank you
Yes.
for your time.
Thank you for your
Thank
Um,
you.
I will definitely put a prayer in for not only a Greater Love Foster Family Agency, but all agencies that contribute to the need of children in our local counties, and of course, the unaccompanied minors program at the borders. They need help. They need loving families. They need support. And if you find it in your heart that you want to do something for a young child or a child in need, please reach out to a Greater Love Foster Family Agency, and let them know that you saw it here on Hector Aguilar and Ben's YouTube channel. And you have their contact information. If you guys want to reach out to them, you can send us a DM or comment below, and we'll get that information out to you guys. Once again, I'm Hector Aguilar, along with Ben, your agent with Aguilar Realty Group. And thank you to Erica and Teresa of A Greater Love Foster Family Agency. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Wednesday on our Wednesday Hot Topic. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.